John Peter Zinger. I like saying that. It's got a good name, ring to it. So John Peter Zinger was born in 1697. He was born in Germany, and just like many other Europeans at the time, he fled from the European nation to come to America for either, for his case, for press release and for um, more freedoms that he knew he would have moving to the New World rather than staying in Britain. There he lived the entirety of his life until he passed in 1746. He died in New York, where he did spend the whole his whole life there. Zinger was an American printer, and when he got to New York, he was selected by a group of men that were already established in New York, and they had him basically start his own journal um, that opposed the governor of New York at the time. Um, the name of the journal that he published was the New York Weekly Journal. It was the second ever published journal in New York City. The basis of it, like I said, was for the criticism of the New York governor. His name was William Cosby. Um, no bill, no pill. And the journal lasted from November 5th, which was the first publication that he released in 1733, up until March 18th, 1751. But for the duration, it was not easily kept. Zinger had to go through a lot of different issues, which we'll continue the slide to talk about, but in order to keep his journal. So the crimes of Zinger, like I was saying, there was things that he had to go through, um, in the publishing of this journal. Um, he was arrested for libel. Basically, the governor didn't like too much of what Zinger was saying about him in the journal. And now the journal didn't just talk about the governor. It was also, a weekly update on things in the States as well as, things that happened back in Britain. But a majority of it had to do with the governor, and he didn't like that too much. So he had Zinger arrested on November 17th, 1734, only a year after the publication of the New York Weekly Journal was released. Zinger would then stay in prison for nearly 10 months without any trial, without any representation, which was his whole reason for leaving Britain, was so that he could have those freedoms. And it's kind of ironic that he gets there and then doesn't get trial until August of the following year. The trial of John Peter Zinger. So the trial started on April 8th, but they had issues with who was going to represent John Peter Zinger. The judge was keeping a few men who were established attorneys from representing him because of the situation of him going against the government. So on the 16th in 1735, the Supreme Court met in the second floor courtroom of the New York City Hall to establish the meet and decision of guilty or not guilty for John Peter Zinger. The counsel that was assigned to him was John Chambers. Now, John Chambers was a newer attorney, wasn't super established, a very knowledgeable man, knew the law, but was just not very equipped to trial and things like that. And he came in and immediately entered the plea of not guilty for Zinger, which everybody knew that was what was going to be happening anyways. After the trial went through, the judge, during the trial, because of English common law, which was transferred over to the colonies, truth was no defense. So even though that it was true that there was freedom of press and that the things that John Peter Zinger was saying about the New York mayor were true, that couldn't be used in the court according to the judge. It would be acquitted. It would be it would be no. So the jurors were urged to not listen to those things, and and make a decision based on just the outcome of what was right or wrong. The jurors obviously did not agree with what the judge or the government side was saying, so they ruled Zenger as not guilty. And not only was this a win for Zenger, but this was a win for America. This was the first important victory for the freedom of press. This marked the idea that Americans can put what they want, if it's true, and nowadays you can see that they put what they want even if it's not, but what is true into the press, into journals, into newspapers, websites, articles, things like that, and not be punished for it. So that was the thing there for that. And that is the end. John Peter Zenger was acquitted and was released and continued to write his journal for almost 50 years following.